The morning started quiet, almost too quiet. The sun was just rising over Pinewood Community, a place known for clean streets, perfect lawns, and strict rules. But today, peace did not last long. The narrator, Daniel, stepped out of his house with a cup of coffee in his hand. He breathed in deeply, ready for a calm morning. But the calm broke the moment he looked at his car, his dark blue Bentley parked in the driveway. His heart stopped. Something was wrong. Daniel walked closer, and the closer he got, the worse his fear became. A long white scratch ran across the side of the Bentley. A deep dent sat near the bumper. It looked like someone had dragged something sharp across the paint and then kicked it. His hand shook as he touched the scratch. This car was his pride. It was expensive, clean, and perfect until now. He stood still for a moment, trying to understand what happened. Then he remembered the small security camera above his garage. His heartbeat quickened. He hurried inside to check the footage. The screen lit up, and Daniel pressed play. The video showed the street from last night. Everything looked normal at first. A few people walked their dogs. A couple kids rode their bikes. Nothing strange. But then the camera showed something worse than he expected. Karen's teenage son, Jason. He appeared in the frame around 9:30 p.m. He was riding his bike recklessly, moving fast in circles around the neighborhood. He stopped when he reached Daniel's driveway. He looked around, making sure no one was watching. Then, he dragged the handlebars of his bike along the side of the Bentley, slowly, on purpose. Daniel felt his stomach twist. The scratching sound on the video made him look away for a second. But it was not over. Jason lifted his leg and kicked the bumper hard. Then again. Then again. He laughed while doing it. After that, he rode away like nothing happened. Daniel's jaw tightened. This was not an accident. It was clear damage. It was disrespect. And worst of all, it was caught on camera. He closed his eyes, trying to calm himself. But before he could think of what to do next, he heard something outside. Loud footsteps. A familiar, unpleasant voice. Karen. She was walking straight toward his house, her arms crossed, her face stiff with anger. Her short blonde hair bounced as she marched down the path like a general going to war. Daniel stepped outside, still holding his phone with the video paused on screen. Karen didn't even give him a chance to speak. "How dare you," she shouted, her voice sharp like a broken plate. "Your car almost hit my son yesterday." Daniel blinked in confusion. "What?" "Karen, your son damaged my Bentley. I have proof." Karen raised her chin in a dramatic way. "Jason told me you scared him with your rich people car. You parked it too close to the sidewalk. It's unsafe for children." Daniel stared at her. Was she serious? His car was in his driveway, not even touching the sidewalk. "My car was parked normally," he said, his voice steady. "But your son." Karen cut him off. "Don't blame my child for your mistakes. You always think you're better than others with your expensive toys." Daniel took a deep breath. "Karen, I have the video." Karen's eyes narrowed. For a moment, she looked scared. But then she smiled, a fake, confident smile. "Show your little video to the HOA then," she said coldly. "Let's see what they think." Before Daniel could respond, another voice joined the scene. "What's going on here?" It was Mr. Wilson, the HOA president, walking toward them from across the street. He looked tired, like he already regretted leaving his house. He always tried to avoid drama, but drama always found him. Karen rushed to him like she had been waiting for this moment. "Thank God you're here," she cried. "Daniel is accusing my son of attacking his car. It's ridiculous." Daniel held up his phone. "I have proof. Jason damaged my Bentley last night." Mr. Wilson scratched his head. He looked from Karen to Daniel, unsure what to believe. Karen jumped in before he could say anything. "He's lying. He's always showing off and causing problems. Jason is just a child. Daniel felt anger building inside him, but he kept calm. Just watch the video, he said. Mr. Wilson sighed. Maybe we should discuss this properly. I'll call an emergency HOA meeting tonight. Karen's eyes lit up. She smirked. Perfect. Daniel felt uneasy. Something about her confidence didn't feel normal. Why was she so sure she would win? As Mr. Wilson walked away, Karen stepped closer to Daniel. She smiled again, but this time her smile looked dangerous. You're new here, Daniel, she whispered. You don't know how things work in this neighborhood. Daniel didn't move. He stared right into her challenging smile. Karen leaned in even closer. The HOA listens to me, she said softly. Not to you. And then she walked away. Daniel stood in silence. His hands felt cold. This wasn't just about a damaged car anymore. This was something bigger. Something ugly. He returned inside and checked the camera footage again. He replayed the moment Jason scratched the Bentley. He replayed the kicks. He took screenshots. He saved everything. But just as he was preparing his evidence for the HOA meeting, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He opened it, expecting maybe a scam or spam message. But the message burned into his mind the second he read it. Don't fight Karen. You will lose. Daniel froze. Who sent this? Why were they warning him? What did Karen have over the HOA? He looked out the window. The calm morning was gone. A storm had already started, quiet, invisible, but dangerous. And he knew one thing for sure. Tonight's HOA meeting would not be normal. It would be war. Daniel spent the whole afternoon preparing for the HOA meeting. His laptop sat open on the dining table, playing the CCTV footage again and again. Every time he watched Jason scratch the Bentley, Daniel felt the same sharp pain in his chest. But now the pain came with something new: fear. Not fear of Karen. Not fear of her loud voice. Fear of the unknown message. Don't fight Karen. You will lose. Daniel checked the message again. There was no name, no photo, no info. Just a warning. A quiet threat. He tried to ignore it, but the words stuck to his mind like glue. By evening, the sky had turned orange and red. Daniel walked to the community hall where the meeting was held. It was a small building near the park, normally quiet, but tonight the place was full of people. Neighbors stood outside whispering, pretending they were just curious, but their eyes showed excitement. Drama was entertainment in Pinewood. When Daniel entered, the room fell into silence. Not complete silence, just a soft hush, the kind that said someone important just walked in. Some neighbors nodded at him kindly, some looked away, and a few stared at him like he was the villain of a TV show. Karen was already inside. She sat at the front table with two HOA members on either side. She looked calm, too calm. Her hands were folded neatly, and she wore a smile that felt like poison dipped in honey. Jason sat next to her, his head down, but Daniel noticed him tapping his foot nervously. Mr. Wilson, the HOA president, shuffled through papers and pretended to be busy, but Daniel saw worry on his face. Maybe guilt too. Daniel took a seat near the front, placing his laptop on the table. He kept his face steady and calm, though his heart beat fast. Karen leaned back in her chair and whispered loudly enough for the people nearby to hear. Some people have nothing better to do than attack children. Daniel ignored her. The meeting began. Mr. Wilson cleared his throat. We're here to discuss a complaint filed by Daniel regarding alleged damage to his vehicle. He paused. And a counter-complaint from Karen regarding unsafe parking. Karen raised her hand dramatically. My son was scared. His car was too big, too close to the sidewalk. Anyone can see that. A few neighbors nodded, not because they agreed, but because Karen's confidence was stronger than their courage. Daniel calmly opened his laptop. My car was in my driveway. I have video proof. Before he could continue, Karen spoke again. Video can be edited, Mr. President. Anyone can change things. Children don't lie, but adults do. Daniel clenched his jaw. Just watch this. He turned the laptop so the screen faced the HOA board. He clicked play. The room went silent. Jason appeared on the screen. The long scratch. The kicks. His laugh. Everything. Daniel watched Karen. She didn't blink. She didn't gasp. She didn't even move. She just stared at the video like she had seen it before. When the video finished, Karen sighed dramatically. This proves nothing. Maybe he was scared. Maybe he fell. Maybe he slipped. Children fall all the time. Daniel couldn't believe it. He wasn't scared. He wasn't falling. He was damaging the car on purpose. Karen shook her head. You are twisting the story. My son said your car drifted forward. He thought it was moving. He panicked. Daniel frowned. My car was turned off. Karen shrugged. That's what you say. Some neighbors whispered to each other. The atmosphere became thick, heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. Mr. Wilson looked stressed. Daniel, do you have more evidence? Karen smirked, waiting for him to say no. But Daniel didn't say no. I have the full night recording, he replied. Different angles. And I have timestamps. Karen's smile cracked for just a second. Jason swallowed hard. Daniel noticed. But before he could say anything else, something unexpected happened. A woman stood from the back row. It was Mrs. Hale, one of the oldest residents in the community, always quiet, never involved in drama. She had short gray hair and small glasses that made her look harmless, but her voice was strong. Stop lying, Karen, she said loudly. Everyone turned. Karen froze. Mrs. Hale stepped forward. I saw your son last night. I was walking my dog. He was laughing while hitting the car. A wave of whispers moved through the room. Karen's smile vanished completely now. Her face darkened. How dare you, she snapped. You're making things up. But Mrs. Hale didn't back down. I'm not scared of you, Karen. Not anymore. Daniel's eyes widened. Not anymore? What did that mean? Mr. Wilson rubbed his forehead. This is becoming serious. We need to. Suddenly, Karen slammed her hand on the table, making everyone jump. This is all nonsense, she screamed. Everyone here is against me. Against my family. Against my son. You're all jealous. Her voice cracked and then grew louder, more emotional. You think Daniel is better than us because he drives a Bentley? Because he has money? You people treat me like I'm nothing. No one spoke. The room grew cold. Karen grabbed Jason's hand. My son is innocent. He will stay innocent. And if this HOA tries to punish my child, I will make sure this entire board is replaced. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Daniel looked around. Some HOA members lowered their heads. Fear. That explained everything. Karen had power here. But how? Mr. Wilson cleared his throat again. We will review everything. We need more time. Karen smiled again, victory smile. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and said loudly, Good. Because this meeting is a joke. Then she walked out, dragging Jason with her. The door slammed behind them. The room stayed silent for several long seconds. Finally, Mr. Wilson looked at Daniel with tired eyes. The board will investigate further. Daniel felt anger and confusion rising again. You saw the video. You heard a witness. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson said softly. Karen has influence. Daniel leaned forward. What kind of influence? Mr. Wilson looked around nervously. I can't say. Mrs. Hale spoke again from the back. Careful, Daniel. There are things about this HOA you don't know. Daniel turned to her. Like what? But before she could answer, Mr. Wilson quickly ended the meeting. Everyone, thank you for coming. We'll notify you of our decision soon. People slowly left the hall. Some avoided Daniel's eyes. Some whispered. Some looked scared. Mrs. Hale walked past Daniel and whispered only one sentence before leaving. She has files on people. Files? Daniel felt the hairs on his arms stand up. What kind of files? And how did she use them? As he packed his laptop, his phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. She's planning something. Be careful. Daniel stood alone in the empty hall. The lights flickered slightly. The whole place felt wrong, like the walls themselves were hiding secrets. He thought the fight was about the Bentley. But now he understood. It was much bigger. And much darker. Daniel walked home after the HOA meeting with a strange heaviness in his chest. The night air felt colder than usual. The trees stood still. The streetlights flickered softly, like they were unsure whether to stay on or shut off. Everything felt wrong in Pinewood that night. The sound of Karen's voice yelling in the meeting kept replaying in his head. The anger. The confidence. The threat. But what bothered him more were the quiet, whispered words from Mrs. Hale. She has files on people. What kind of files? Why did those words make Daniel feel like he had stepped into something dangerous? He reached his house, locked the door, and sat on the couch. His phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number, the same sender who warned him before. He hesitated, then opened it. Karen is not your only problem. Daniel stared at the screen, confused and uneasy. Who was sending these messages? Why did they know so much? He typed back, "Who are you?" But the reply never came. The neighborhood starts to speak. The next morning, Daniel walked to his driveway to check his Bentley again. The scratch looked even worse in the sunlight. The paint shimmered where the metal showed beneath. The dent felt deeper than before. Daniel sighed and went to get a cloth from the garage. Just then, someone called his name quietly. Daniel. He turned. It was his neighbor from across the street, Mr. Collins. A shy, thin man who usually avoided eye contact and rushed back home every time Karen appeared. Mr. Collins looked nervous. He came closer, glancing around like someone was watching. I saw what happened last night, he whispered. I was at the meeting. Daniel nodded. Yeah. Pretty wild. No, Mr. Collins said quickly. You don't understand. You shouldn't feel safe right now. Daniel frowned. Why? Mr. Collins swallowed hard. Because Karen controls the HOA. Not officially. But everyone knows she has something on the board members. Daniel crossed his arms. Something like what? Mr. Collins looked around again. Secrets. Personal information. Things they don't want public. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. How does she get that information? Mr. Collins took a deep breath. Her brother used to work at the HOA office 2 years ago. He had access to all the financial documents, complaints, emails, everything. When he left, Karen kept copies. She knows everyone's fines, late payments, old problems, private letters. She uses them to control people. Daniel felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. So she blackmails the HOA members, he asked quietly. Mr. Collins nodded, barely moving. Exactly. If someone argues with her, she finds something to use against them. Daniel thought of Mrs. Hale. Is that why she said not anymore last night? Yes, Mr. Collins whispered. Karen tried to scare her last year. But Mrs. Hale has nothing to hide. Karen hates people with nothing to lose. Daniel felt a strange mix of anger and determination. So this whole HOA system is fake? She's running everything? Mr. Collins nodded. People pretend it's normal because it's easier. No one wants to fight her. Daniel sighed. Great. And now I'm fighting her. Mr. Collins stepped back. Be careful, Daniel. She always gets revenge. Daniel watched him hurry back to his house, looking over his shoulder the whole time. Karen's unexpected move. Around noon, Daniel heard yelling outside. Not loud yelling, more like sharp, angry whispers. He peeked out his window. Karen was in front of his driveway again. She wasn't yelling at him this time. She was yelling at Mr. Wilson, the HOA president. Daniel watched quietly. Karen was pointing at his house, her face red with rage. Mr. Wilson looked helpless, like a student being scolded by a teacher. Daniel opened his window slightly. He heard Karen hissing, "Fix this. Fix it today. I'm not losing to him." Mr. Wilson said something too quiet to hear. Karen leaned closer. If the board doesn't support me, I will share your little secret. Remember that. Mr. Wilson went pale. Then Karen walked away with a cold smile. Daniel closed the window slowly. Now he understood why Mr. Wilson seemed scared. Why the HOA refused to give a decision. Why Karen was sure she would win. This wasn't a simple neighborhood argument. This was power. And Karen owned it. A surprise at Daniel's door. Hours later, Daniel sat at his computer, trying to gather more evidence. Maybe he could get the full footage from the neighbor's doorbell camera again. Maybe he could check if any other cameras caught something. Just as he started typing, the doorbell rang. Daniel frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. He checked through the peephole. It was Mrs. Hale. Daniel quickly opened the door. Mrs. Hale? Everything okay? She entered without waiting for an invite, like she was afraid to be seen outside. We need to talk, she said. Daniel closed the door. Mrs. Hale sat on the couch. She looked stressed, like something heavy sat on her shoulders. Daniel, you're in danger, she said softly. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Because of Karen? Mrs. Hale shook her head. Because you stood up to her. Most people don't do that. She will not forget it. Daniel exhaled. Why is she like this? It's just a car. Mrs. Hale leaned forward. This is not about the car. It's about control. She can't let anyone challenge her. If you win, others will think they can win too. Daniel stayed silent. Mrs. Hale continued, she creates chaos when she feels threatened. Watch your property. Watch your mailbox. Watch your reputation. She will try everything. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Mrs. Hale, someone sent me a message. Twice. Warning me. Was it you? She shook her head quickly. No. But I'm not surprised. There are people here who watch her. Quietly. They know how dangerous she is. Daniel stared at her. Who are they? Mrs. Hale stood. People who have suffered because of her. People who lost money, peace, and even friendships. They don't show themselves, but they know everything. Daniel frowned. Why don't they fight her? She paused at the door. Because Karen doesn't play fair. Then she left. Daniel locked the door and stood there alone. His house felt colder, darker, and quieter, not peaceful quiet, but the kind of quiet that comes before something terrible. He walked to the kitchen and poured water into a glass. His mind was spinning. Karen had files. Karen had control. Karen had fear on her side. Daniel took a sip of water. Then, his phone buzzed again. Another message. From the same unknown number. This time, it said, "She knows you talked to Mrs. Hale." Daniel froze. Someone was watching him. Someone who knew everything happening in Pinewood. And someone who wanted him to know. This was just the beginning. Daniel did not sleep that night. How could he? His phone kept glowing in the dark, replaying the last message from the unknown sender. "She knows you talked to Mrs. Hale." Daniel lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet sounds of Pinewood. But tonight, even the silence felt dangerous. Every creak in the house, every rustle of wind outside made him think Karen had already started her revenge. When the first light of morning entered through his curtains, Daniel got out of bed and sat at his desk. He knew one thing for sure. If he didn't gather stronger evidence now, Karen would crush him completely. He opened his laptop and started digging. The mysterious doorbell footage. Daniel remembered something important. His neighbor, Mr. Collins, had mentioned that multiple homes on their street had doorbell cameras. Every camera pointed slightly differently. If he combined all the angles, he could create a complete timeline. So he stepped outside and knocked on Mr. Collins' door. Mr. Collins opened it halfway, like he expected trouble. "Daniel, what happened now?" he whispered. "I need your help," Daniel said. "I need your full doorbell footage from last night." Mr. Collins hesitated. "If Karen finds out." "She already knows everything," Daniel interrupted. "She even knows I talked to you and Mrs. Hale." Mr. Collins' face went pale. "How?" Daniel shook his head. "Someone is watching all of us." Mr. Collins sighed. "Fine. Come in." Inside, Daniel watched the footage on Mr. Collins' small television. The camera caught something very important. Jason didn't just damage the Bentley. He came back. At around 10 p.m., Jason returned with something in his hand, a long metal rod. He walked around Daniel's driveway like he was waiting for someone. Then he tried to scratch the second side of the Bentley, but slipped and dropped the rod. Jason looked scared. He picked up the rod and ran. Daniel paused the video. "Why would he come back?" he whispered. Mr. Collins answered quietly, "Someone told him to. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't Karen's idea, it was Jason's fear." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Fear of who?" Mr. Collins didn't answer. Daniel copied the footage to his USB drive. But this time, he didn't just store the clip. He watched every second carefully, and noticed something strange at the edge of the video. A shadow. Not Jason's. Not Daniel's. A tall figure standing across the street, near a tree. Watching everything. Motionless. Daniel leaned closer. The figure never stepped into the light, but it was clear someone else was present that night. Someone who didn't want to be seen. "Do you know who that is?" Daniel asked. Mr. Collins shook his head. "No. But I've seen that shadow before." Daniel felt chills run down his arms. More shocking evidence. Daniel didn't stop there. He went house to house, talking to neighbors carefully, politely. Some refused to help. Some whispered apologies. But 3 neighbors allowed him to check their footage. By afternoon, Daniel had something powerful. A complete timeline of everything that happened the night his Bentley was damaged. But the most shocking part wasn't Jason. It was the pattern. Every camera showed the same tall figure standing near the street. Sometimes near a tree. Sometimes near a parked car. Always watching. The figure didn't move. Didn't run. Didn't talk to Jason. Just watched. Almost like he was making sure Jason did the damage. Daniel felt his stomach twist. Who was this person? Why were they watching Jason? Why were they watching Daniel's house? Karen's hidden plan. As Daniel walked back home, he noticed a group of people standing near the entrance of Pinewood Community. They were reading something pinned to the bulletin board. Daniel approached and felt his anger rise instantly. Karen had posted a new notice. Community warning. Residents must be aware that Daniel's Bentley caused a safety hazard. Jason narrowly avoided a serious accident due to unsafe parking. Below it was a picture, cropped carefully, showing Jason standing near the Bentley. The scratch wasn't visible. Karen wrote on the bottom. HOA investigation ongoing. Please stay cautious. Daniel tore the paper off the board, breathing hard. Everyone around him stayed silent. Someone whispered, "Karen is starting again." Someone else said, "She always wins." Daniel felt his jaw tighten. No. Not this time. The secret meeting. Before evening, Daniel received a text from Mrs. Hale. "Come to my house. Urgent." Daniel walked quickly. Mrs. Hale opened the door immediately and pulled him inside. "You found something, didn't you?" she asked. Daniel nodded. Someone was watching everything that night. A tall figure in the shadows. Mrs. Hale's eyes widened. "I knew it." "Knew what?" Daniel demanded. Mrs. Hale looked around her living room, making sure no neighbors were listening. Then she spoke quietly, almost whispering. "Karen is not acting alone." Daniel frowned. "Who is helping her?" Mrs. Hale sat down and sighed deeply. "Her brother." Daniel remembered what Mr. Collins had said. Karen's brother used to work at the HOA office. But Mrs. Hale continued. "He still works, unofficially." Daniel blinked. "Meaning?" "He has access to cameras. Documents. Emails. He watches people. He spies for Karen. She uses his information to control everyone." Daniel felt a knot form in his stomach. So the person watching Jason that night could be. "Yes," Mrs. Hale said. "Karen's brother." Daniel leaned back in shock. This wasn't a simple neighborhood argument anymore. This was surveillance. Manipulation. Control. Mrs. Hale stood up and gave Daniel a small USB drive. "What's this?" Daniel asked. "Something the HOA doesn't want you to have," she said. "It's a file Karen hid from the board. It proves she manipulated a case last year. If you show this with the doorbell footage, Karen can't escape." Daniel stared at the USB. "How did you get this?" he asked. Mrs. Hale gave a small smile. "I may be old, but I'm not blind. I've been collecting things on Karen for a long time." Daniel gripped the USB tightly. This was it. This was the edge he needed. But before he could say anything else, there was a sudden knock on the door. A loud, slow knock. Mrs. Hale froze. Daniel looked at her. "Who is it?" She whispered, terrified. "That's Karen's knock." Daniel's heart started racing. The knock came again, harder this time. Mrs. Hale whispered quickly, "Hide the USB. Go through the back door. Now." Daniel shoved the USB into his pocket. As he moved toward the back door, the knocking changed into pounding. Karen now shouted from outside. "I know you're inside. Open the door." Mrs. Hale motioned for Daniel to leave. He slipped out the back quietly, moving fast across the yard. Behind him, he heard Karen's voice echo. "You can't hide from me. Either of you." Daniel reached his house and locked the door. He leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. In his pocket, the USB felt warm, almost alive. And then, his phone buzzed. A message from the unknown number. This time, only one sentence. "She saw you leave." Daniel looked out the window at the dark street. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It had already begun. Daniel didn't sleep the night before the HOA hearing. Not even for a second. He sat at his desk with the USB Mrs. Hale gave him in one hand and the collected doorbell footage in the other. The fear in his chest was mixed with adrenaline. Karen was dangerous, but now Daniel had something she didn't expect. Proof. Real proof. Deadly proof. Still, he knew she wouldn't go down quietly. When morning arrived, Pinewood community felt different. Too quiet. Too still. Even the birds seemed to avoid the neighborhood. Daniel left early for the HOA hall. The sky was cloudy, as if the whole world was preparing for a storm. Arrival at the HOA hall. The moment Daniel entered, he felt every eye turn toward him. Some with sympathy. Some with fear. Some with curiosity. No one smiled. Mr. Wilson, the HOA president, was already sitting at the front table. His hands trembled slightly as he shuffled papers. He looked like a man walking into his own doom. Two HOA board members whispered among themselves, glancing nervously at the entrance. Suddenly, the door burst open. Karen walked in. Not angrily. Not loudly. Not dramatically. She walked in smiling. That smile was worse than her shouting. It wasn't confidence. It was certainty. Behind her was Jason, eyes puffy from what looked like crying. Karen kept one hand on his back as if using him as a shield. But the most disturbing thing was the man who followed them. Tall. Thin. Dark clothes. Face hidden under a cap. Daniel recognized the height. The posture. The presence. The shadow figure from the doorbell footage. Karen's brother. Daniel's stomach dropped. Karen looked around the room, soaking in the attention, then spoke loudly. Let's start this. Some people are busy making up stories. She locked eyes with Daniel, her smile widening just a little. Mr. Wilson cleared his throat. Everyone, let's keep this civil. This is a formal hearing. Karen sat down with exaggerated elegance. Of course. I'm always civil. A few people in the room dropped their gaze. Jason sat quietly beside his mother, fingers twisting nervously. Daniel sat opposite her, plugging his laptop into the projector. It was time. Karen's pre-show attack. Before Mr. Wilson could begin, Karen raised her hand dramatically. I would like to speak first. Mr. Wilson hesitated. He didn't want her to speak, but he also didn't want her to become angry. Fine, but keep it short. Karen nodded, then stood, placing both hands on the table. My son, she began loudly, has been bullied, insulted, and emotionally attacked by this. She pointed at Daniel Mann and his expensive toy. The room murmured. Daniel clenched his jaw. Karen continued, louder, his car was blocking the sidewalk. Children were scared. My son panicked and stumbled. Anything he did was an accident. Daniel bit his tongue, forcing himself to stay quiet. Karen wiped a fake tear. Jason has been crying all night. He feels guilty for something he didn't do. Jason flinched at the word didn't, but Karen squeezed his shoulder tightly, signaling him to stay quiet. Daniel felt rage heating inside him. Mr. Wilson sighed. Thank you, Karen. Now let's review the evidence. Wait. Karen shouted. One more thing. Everyone groaned silently. Karen smiled again. I have a witness. Daniel's heart dropped. Karen turned toward the man in the cap, her brother. This is my brother, she said softly. He was walking near Daniel's house that night. He saw everything. Daniel whispered, of course you were there. Karen's brother stepped forward and spoke in a deep, slow voice. Jason tripped. The car didn't move, but he was trying to catch his balance. Daniel felt the entire room slide into Karen's control again. If this guy lied, everything would collapse. Karen smirked, taking her seat again like she had already won. Your turn, she said sweetly to Daniel. Show us your little videos. Daniel's turn, the real evidence drops. Daniel stood slowly, plugging the USB and footage into his laptop. The projector clicked on. He took a deep breath and began. Last time you saw a short clip. Today, you will see everything. The first doorbell clip played. Jason scratching the Bentley. Jason kicking the bumper. Jason laughing. People gasped. Karen's smile faded slightly. The second clip played, Jason returning with the metal rod. Jason checking the driveway. Jason dropping the rod. Jason running. Karen's jaw tightened. Then Daniel paused the video and zoomed in, showing the shadow figure standing across the street. Silent. Still. Watching. Karen blinked rapidly. Her fingers gripped the chair. Jason swallowed, trembling. The room was dead silent. Daniel looked directly at Karen's brother. Is this you? The man didn't answer. Daniel turned to the HOA board. That shadow, he said, was present in 3 different doorbell cameras. Same height. Same stance. Same time. His job wasn't to walk around. He was monitoring Jason. Karen opened her mouth to argue, but Daniel spoke over her. And that's not all. He inserted Mrs. Hale's USB. A document popped onto the screen. Title: Confidential HOA Manipulation Case, Hidden File. The room gasped louder this time. Daniel scrolled down. The document explained how Karen had blackmailed a previous homeowner with private information to avoid paying a fine. It detailed emails from her brother, emails he shouldn't even have access to. Karen jumped to her feet. This is fake, she screamed. This is edited. He's lying. Daniel ignored her. He clicked play on the recorded audio file attached to the document. Karen's voice filled the room. If you ever tell anyone, I'll ruin you. I have your financial papers. I know everything about you. Gasps filled the hall. Karen froze. Her face turned white. Then red. Then twisted with pure rage. The HOA board members stared at her, stunned. Even Mr. Wilson looked betrayed. Jason whispered, "Mom, you promised we'd be okay?" But Karen didn't hear him. She was too busy shaking with fury, her eyes filled with fire. The moment everything breaks. Mr. Wilson stood up slowly. Karen, he stuttered, this is serious. Extremely serious. Karen screamed, no. You all hate me. This is a setup. Daniel stepped back as she pointed at him wildly. You, she shouted. You think you can destroy me? You think your fancy car makes you powerful? Her brother reached for her shoulder, but she slapped his hand away. This whole neighborhood is useless, she yelled. Stupid people. Weak people. All of you. I run this place. Me. The board members looked horrified. Karen suddenly flipped her chair, sending it crashing across the floor. She grabbed a stack of HOA papers and threw them into the air. This meeting is illegal, she shouted. Everything you saw is a lie. If anyone votes against me, I will ruin every single one of you. But her voice cracked. People weren't afraid anymore. They were angry. Mr. Wilson finally found his courage. Karen, sit down. This hearing is not yours to control anymore. Karen stared at him in disbelief. You think you can stop me, she whispered. Daniel stepped forward calmly. Yes, he said. Because now, everyone sees the truth. Karen screamed a raw, animalistic sound and stormed out of the hall, slamming the door behind her so hard the walls shook. Silence fell. Then, slowly, the HOA board turned toward Daniel. Mr. Wilson spoke softly. Daniel, with this evidence, Karen will face charges. She will lose her HOA power. And she will pay for all the damages. Daniel finally exhaled. He had won. Or so he thought. Because as he packed his laptop, his phone buzzed again. A new message from the unknown number. This time it said, "You think it's over? It's not Karen you should fear now." Daniel looked toward the door Karen's brother had exited through. The man was gone. So was the shadow. And Daniel suddenly realized. The real enemy had just entered the game. Daniel left the HOA hall expecting relief. He expected the tension in his chest to fade, the fear in his stomach to melt, and the chaos to finally end. But instead, something felt wrong. His hands were cold. His mind was restless. And that final text message kept echoing inside his head. "You think it's over? It's not Karen you should fear now." Who sent it? Karen? Jason? Her brother? Or someone else? The air around him felt heavy, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. The neighborhood war begins. Word spread fast. Before Daniel even reached home, people were already whispering on sidewalks. Older neighbors stared from their porches. Kids stopped playing and watched him walk past. Even dogs seemed quieter. Everyone knew what happened earlier. But no one knew what would happen now. Daniel reached his driveway and saw something strange. A black SUV parked across the street. Windows tinted dark. Engine running. Someone was inside. Watching. Daniel felt a chill creep down his spine. He walked toward his house slowly, pretending he didn't notice. But the moment he touched his front door, the SUV's headlights blinked once, then turned off. Silent. Motionless. Daniel hurried inside and locked the door. A warning from an unexpected person. As soon as he sat down, someone knocked. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Daniel's heart jumped into his throat. He checked the peephole. Mrs. Hale. He opened the door quickly. She didn't smile. Her face was pale. "Daniel," she whispered. "We need to talk. Right now." He let her in. She locked the door behind her, even checked it twice. Daniel frowned. "What's happening? Is this about Karen?" "No," she whispered. "It's about her brother." Daniel felt the room shrink. Mrs. Hale's hands shook slightly as she spoke. "His name is Marcus," she said. Daniel repeated the name under his breath. "Marcus. Karen controls the neighborhood," Mrs. Hale continued, "but Marcus controls her." Daniel felt his stomach twist. Mrs. Hale walked closer, her voice dropping even lower. "You saw him in the footage, didn't you?" Daniel nodded. "He's dangerous," she said. "Very dangerous. Karen is loud and dramatic, but Marcus, he works quietly. He stays in the shadows. He doesn't scream or threaten." She paused. "He destroys." Daniel swallowed hard. Mrs. Hale looked toward the window nervously. "He wasn't angry about the hearing," she whispered. "He expected it. He doesn't care about the HOA. He cares about control. And now, because you exposed Karen." She looked Daniel straight in the eyes. "He thinks you're a problem." Daniel's heartbeat grew louder in his ears. "But why?" he asked. "Karen caused the damage. Karen attacked people. Why come after me?" Mrs. Hale sighed, eyes full of fear. "Because you broke Karen's mask. And Marcus hates when someone breaks his tools." The break-in that wasn't a break-in. Before Daniel could process anything, his phone buzzed. A notification from his home security app. Backyard motion detected 8:42 p.m. Daniel froze. Mrs. Hale grabbed his arm. "Don't go outside." Daniel clicked the alert. The camera feed loaded. A blurry figure stood near his fence. Not moving. Just standing. Watching the back of his house. Daniel leaned closer. He recognized the posture immediately. Tall. Still. Shadow-like. Marcus. Mrs. Hale whispered, "He's testing you." "That's what he does." The figure turned slowly toward the camera. But instead of stepping closer, he lifted a hand and pointed directly at the lens. The feed cut to black. Daniel's breath caught. Mrs. Hale stepped back. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. "Karen returns, and she's not alone." Later that night, Daniel heard yelling outside. Voices. Footsteps. Shouting. He peeked through the blinds. Karen stood near the street, hair messy, eyes wild. But this wasn't the same Karen from the HOA hall. This Karen looked desperate. She screamed at a group of neighbors. "You all betrayed me. Every single one of you. You think you can turn your backs on me?" People stayed on their porches, refusing to argue. Then Karen pointed at Daniel's house. "This is his fault," she screamed. "He started all of this." Daniel swallowed hard. Mrs. Hale whispered, "Don't go outside. She wants you to react." Karen stormed toward his driveway. Jason ran behind her, crying, "Mom, stop. Please stop." Karen ignored him completely. She stood in front of Daniel's Bentley and kicked the tire. "You think your car makes you better than us? You think you can make me look stupid?" she screamed. Daniel clenched his fists. He really wanted to go outside. But then he noticed something. Marcus wasn't with Karen. Marcus was standing across the street. Watching. Silent. Hands in his pockets. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He was studying. Karen was the distraction. Marcus was the real threat. Daniel stepped back from the window. Mrs. Hale whispered, "He's waiting for you to make the wrong move." The mysterious envelope. After almost 15 minutes of yelling, Karen finally dragged Jason home. Marcus disappeared into the darkness. The street became silent again. But at midnight, Daniel heard a soft sound at the front door. Not knocking. Just something sliding under it. He hurried over and found a single envelope on the floor. No name. No address. Only one word written in black marker. Tomorrow. Daniel's heart dropped. He opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a photo. A picture of him taken earlier that day in the HOA hall. But someone had circled his face with red ink. Underneath the circle, one sentence was written. "You exposed the wrong person." Daniel felt his blood turn cold. The final revelation of the night. Mrs. Hale stayed with Daniel until 2 a.m., too scared to walk home alone. Before leaving, she placed a trembling hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "Karen is finished. But Marcus, he doesn't lose quietly. He doesn't forget. And he doesn't forgive." Daniel took a deep breath. What does he want? Mrs. Hale looked toward the dark street. "Control," she whispered. "Always control." She paused at the door. "And now, he wants control over you." Daniel stood frozen even after she left. The envelope. The photo. The circled face. Tomorrow. Something was coming. Something bigger than Karen. Something darker. And Daniel knew. By sunrise, Daniel already knew. Tomorrow was today. He didn't sleep. Not even for a second. The image from the envelope, his face circled in red, stayed in his mind like a warning from a dark future. When he looked out his window at 6 a.m., the same black SUV from last night was still there. Engine off. Windows tinted. Like a silent animal waiting for prey to step outside. Daniel's chest felt tight. Something big was coming. He just didn't know what shape it would take. The neighborhood feels wrong. By 7 a.m., the neighborhood started waking up. But it didn't feel normal. People opened their curtains slowly. They whispered on porches. Some looked at Daniel's house with fear. Everyone could sense something. Something heavy. Something dangerous. Around 7:30 a.m., Daniel heard loud voices outside. He peeked out. Karen. Hair messy. Face pale. Eyes wide like she hadn't slept either. She wasn't shouting this time. She was crying. But not sad crying, angry crying. Jason stood behind her, looking broken. Two neighbors stood nearby, trying to calm her down. I didn't do anything. Karen yelled. I am the victim. Daniel ruined everything. He destroyed my life. One neighbor shook his head. Karen, please stop. Everyone saw the evidence. You need to calm down. Karen's voice cracked. You don't understand. You don't know what he's capable of. Daniel frowned. Who? Marcus? Suddenly, Karen grabbed Jason's arm hard. Get inside, she screamed. I said get inside. Jason cried, Mom, you're hurting me. Karen pulled harder. Daniel stepped back from the window, stomach twisting. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The explosion of chaos begins. At 8 a.m., Daniel heard a knock. Not a soft knock. Not a polite knock. 3 loud, hard bangs. Daniel checked the peephole. Marcus. He stood tall, calm, and cold. His face was visible now, sharp jawline, empty eyes, no expression. Like a man who removed his emotions long ago. Daniel didn't open the door. Marcus smiled slightly and spoke through the wood. Good morning, Daniel. Silence. I think you and I should talk. Daniel's hands shook. Marcus continued, voice slow and controlled. You embarrassing my sister, that was a mistake. A big one. Daniel stepped back. Marcus tapped the door lightly. That evidence you showed? Cute. But you don't understand how this neighborhood works. Another tap. I'm the one people really listen to. Daniel swallowed hard. Marcus lowered his voice. And I don't like losing. Suddenly, a scream rang out down the street. Jason. Daniel rushed to the window. Karen had collapsed on the ground near her lawn, screaming at Marcus. No! Leave him alone. Don't you touch him. Marcus turned his head calmly toward her. Karen crawled backward on the grass, shaking. Please, she cried. Please not Jason. He's just a kid. Marcus didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't show emotion. Daniel watched in shock. Karen was terrified of her own brother. Marcus whispered something Daniel couldn't hear, but whatever it was made Karen freeze like ice. She stopped screaming. She stopped moving. She stopped breathing for a moment. Jason cried loudly, clutching his mother. Marcus then looked over his shoulder, straight at Daniel's window. As if he knew Daniel was watching. Daniel stepped away. Heart pounding. The message Daniel couldn't ignore. At 10 a.m., Daniel's phone buzzed. A new message from the unknown number. Meet me at the HOA park. Alone. Daniel stared at the text. Was it Marcus? Someone else? A trap? He thought of calling the police. But what would he say? A man looked at my camera and pointed? A woman screamed at her own brother? A text says alone? Too weak. Too vague. And Marcus. Marcus felt like someone who didn't fear police. Daniel took a breath, grabbed his keys, and walked outside. The black SUV was gone. The street was empty. But every window seemed to be watching. He walked toward the small HOA park at the center of the neighborhood. His heartbeat matched his footsteps. The truth comes out. At the park, a figure sat on a bench. Not Marcus. Not Karen. Jason. Daniel froze. Jason stood up slowly, wiping tears. I sent the message, he whispered. Daniel blinked. You? Why? Jason looked around nervously before speaking. Because. I have to tell you something. Something big. Daniel walked closer. Jason's hands trembled. It wasn't my idea to scratch your car, he said softly. It wasn't even my idea to take the metal rod. Daniel sighed. Jason, I know your mom told you. No, Jason interrupted quickly. Not Mom. Daniel's eyes widened. Jason lowered his voice to a whisper. It was Marcus. Daniel felt a shock run through his body. Jason continued, crying now. He told me to do it. He told me to break things, to act angry, to make trouble. He said if I didn't, he'd hurt Mom. Daniel sat down slowly. Jason's voice shook harder. He said he needed chaos in the neighborhood. He told me he wanted people scared. He wanted people confused. He said it makes him powerful. Daniel felt sick. So all of this, wasn't about a Bentley. It wasn't about a scratch. Or a kid. Or even Karen. It was about control. Marcus used Karen. He used Jason. He used the whole neighborhood. Daniel whispered, Jason, why are you telling me this? Jason cried silently for a moment. Then said. Because he's planning something today. Something big. Daniel leaned forward. What? Tell me. Jason looked him in the eyes. He said he's going to reset the neighborhood. And you're the first one he's coming for. Daniel's blood ran cold. The final confrontation. Suddenly. A shadow appeared on the ground behind them. Slow. Tall. Silent. Daniel turned. Marcus. Standing just a few feet away. Hands in his pockets. Expression calm. Voice soft. So, he said, the boy finally talks. Jason froze with terror. Marcus stepped closer. You were a good tool, Jason, he said calmly. But tools break. Daniel stood in front of Jason protectively. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You think you can stop me? Daniel swallowed hard but didn't move aside. Marcus smiled. A cold, empty smile. You know, he said quietly, I was going to deal with you quietly. But now. He took one step closer. I think everyone should see what happens when someone disrespects me. But then. Voices erupted from behind the trees. Mrs. Hale. Mr. Wilson. 5 other neighbors. All walking toward them. Quiet. Determined. Not afraid. Mrs. Hale spoke first. We saw everything. Marcus turned slightly. Mr. Wilson stepped forward. You don't control this neighborhood anymore, Marcus. Marcus laughed softly. You think 7 of you can stop me? Mrs. Hale raised her phone. We don't need 7. She showed the screen. A live video call with the police. Marcus's smile faded. Slowly. Daniel stepped forward. It's over. For the first time. Marcus looked unsure. He tried to walk away. But 2 patrol cars pulled up at the park entrance. Red and blue lights reflected off the trees. Jason sobbed in relief. Karen appeared from behind the officers, shaking uncontrollably. This time, she whispered, Even I can't protect you. Marcus stepped back, but now he was surrounded. Police approached. He didn't fight. He only whispered to Daniel as they took him away. This place will never be peaceful. But Daniel wasn't afraid anymore. Because for the first time, the neighborhood stood together. Karen lost her HOA power. She entered counseling. She apologized publicly. Jason began therapy and stayed far away from Marcus's influence. The neighborhood changed too. People talked more, helped each other, became a real community. And Daniel? He finally slept again. Not because the danger was gone, but because now, he wasn't alone. The Bentley got repaired. The street became calm. And the shadows disappeared. For good.